Start off with, we had a little corrections period yesterday, light stretch and stride, and we'll be moving forward today with kind of fundamental work for 2 days. We will work on some opponents that we've got upcoming past the Florida game for stuff we don't see from our offense. So fundamentally, we'll work on some opponents we got coming up, and then Thursday will kind of be our start on Florida. So we'll start on those guys and try to get better at us. We got a lot we can work on. We're gonna try to improve and put good on good and give a lot of guys an opportunity to compete. And we've actually got a couple guys that are gonna make some position changes and just look at for 3 practices. But that's where we are.
Can you expound on the position changes? What you're thinking about there?
We're gonna move Barnett and let him try some offensive line and see if he can develop there. He played a little bit in high school, and he's kind of not in the rotation defensively, and see where he would be as an offensive lineman. And then Tate Crowder is going to move and play a little bit of linebacker. We've got some depth issues there. And then Kenneth Williams will play a little bit of DB and just find out. We feel like that those 3 guys are athletically probably better athletes than where they are on their current spot on the depth chart. So we're going to get those guys some work, find out what they can do, and it's really about us getting better. So it's developmental. We'll teach them what to do, but we want to see what they can do and see if they can help our roster. And those Tay and Kenneth may be able to help even on special teams.
Crowder will be inside?
Yeah, he's going to do inside and probably rush a little bit too outside. Be able to do both.
Kirby, this time of year, or in season, how much time do you have to self-evaluate, or does that tend to be just after a season?
No, I think you always self-evaluate. We self-evaluate. We do quality control, offensively, defensively, special teams, what we're doing, especially in an off week, but you really do it every week. When you talk about after a game, first thing we do on Sundays, we come in and say, all right, what could we have done different in this situation? What could we have done different here? I think that's important to growth and getting better. I think being your own critic is very important, and that's kind of the football system I grew up in.
Is there anything that's jumped out at you that you could share?
Well, I think that when you look at things, obviously the biggest glaring thing to me is the special teams. We've got to improve in that area, and I think that's a major concern from a depth standpoint. We try to play, starter on every special teams, and we start with punt and kickoff as the 2 primary ones. When you look at our punt team, I think we got, I don't know if not every guy out there is a starter. And we try to put that to be the emphasis because it's a change in possession. We don't have a lot of depth on kickoff coverage. When you look at it, there's a lot of good players on there, but we've got some better players that we're going to try to put on there. But when you got starters out there, it's usually tough. Malcolm Parrish is a guy. But that's the biggest, when you talk about self-evaluation, it's what can we do better in the kicking game to improve our situation in each game.
How about,
very important.
I'm sorry. How about self-evaluation in terms of yourself or your coaching staff, in terms of either what you guys are saying or how you're conveying it to players?
Yeah, I would say that you look at that always, how you're doing things, but the message that's being delivered, that doesn't change, which is that we need to improve as a group. We need to improve as an offense. We've got to improve as a defense. I mean, we tell the kids all the time that it's not just them, it's us. And it's very important that they understand we can improve, they can improve, and everybody can. It's a joint effort, and I think that's really important that they know that they've got that relationship with you. I don't really know what you're asking.
Well, obviously there's so much noise out there right now too, coming off a bad loss, going into an off week, going into a big game. Be careful how I word this, but only 7 games into your first season, people are wondering, whether you're overmatched as a head coach, being first time. I mean, how do you deal with all that stuff?
I don't deal with it. I focus on us getting better, and I think that's the most important thing, is that with this job comes criticism. I'm accepting of that. I've seen it. I've seen it with good friends. I've seen it with programs I've been in, and that doesn't scare me. What I'm worried about is our team and our players developing and getting better, and that's the most important thing, to show the fact. And look, we've had, I think every game's come down to the 4th quarter with the exception of Ole Miss. So every one of those games could easily have gone either way, and that's SEC football.
Is it an operation issue, the 12 men on the field, 10 men on the field? Where is that? How does that responsibility fall?
Well, it falls on the groupings and signaling. So we signal the grouping. If we signal regular, the 11 regular guys are supposed to be out there. So we had a guy that didn't see the signal and didn't come off. Same way we had a signal that a guy didn't go on. So it's preparation. And that's the most important thing is, I mean, we do those things on Friday. We do them every week. We substitute. Kids got to see it, come off the field. But we as coaches have got to do a great job of being responsible for that and making sure it doesn't happen. What you can't have is 12 men on the field in a critical time and it costs you. And I've been in a lot of games where that's happened.
Coach, on Michael Barnett, couple questions. One, tackle or guard, will he get a first look at it? And
Yeah.
secondly, is that a situation where you guys are trying to get him involved right away, or is it something you guys are trying to see if he can develop there?
I don't think you can answer that until he goes over there. We're going to work him at tackle initially, but I don't think you can actually know that until he gets there and sees what he can do. I mean, he played it in high school, so it's not like it's completely foreign to him. But to say he's going to be able to walk in and know our protections and know the pickups, I think it's more you're looking long-term that where this guy can help.
Coach, what do you feel like are some things, or even one thing in particular, that can only be learned firsthand as opposed to where you saw it secondhand, or even somebody telling you about being a head coach?
Not sure I understand your question.
Just what are some lessons, or at least one lesson that you pretty much can only learn firsthand of being a head coach?
I don't know that there is a lesson you can learn firsthand. I think probably the environment with the team and the interaction with the team, because there's no practice of that. I think when it comes to all the other details of making the decisions, you make those as an assistant coach when you're sitting there and you're sitting in the office. And after the game, we come in, and anywhere I've been, FSU, Alabama, Miami Dolphins, that's what coaches do. They sit around and second guess and try to critique. So that happens all the time. But I think the interaction with the team, pre-practice, post-practice, meetings, those are things that for me were defensive things that I always did as a defensive coach. So now it's including the offense in the message, including the special teams in the message, that becomes really important.
You mentioned the penalties. There's been 8 in each of the last 4 games. You know, how much do you guys emphasize on those during this final?
Oh, a ton. I mean, we emphasize it every day. We've got officials out of practice. They give us a report. We go over it with the players. We post it in meetings, offensively and defensively. And you try to emphasize that so the guys see it and understand that your self-inflicted wounds kill you. When you look at things like, you know, you got a 3rd and 5 and now it's 3rd and 10. You go back to the Ole Miss game on the road. We had 2 1st and 15s. That we actually ran the ball well and moved the ball, but we couldn't get 15 yards in those situations. So we emphasize them a ton, and we've even got a team meeting thing where we post who's got the most, because the kids sometimes are embarrassed by that. They don't want to be that guy on there. And there's also a discipline structure at practice that we use. But you know, look, anytime you've got penalties, guys, you've got some malfunction in your execution. So it goes back to the same thing. How do we execute better and not have these penalties? Some are undisciplined, but some are aggressive. And I can take, you know, aggressive penalties. Sometimes we had Julian got a hands to the face. I mean, that was not intentional. It happens. You know, it slipped up there. But some of them where we don't get lined up right, 12 men on the field, those are the ones you can't have.
What
How
was
do
the
you size
assessment?
up go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what was the assessment of Jacob Eaton after going back and watch his last game on film?
Well, it's very similar to what he's done every game. He's had some really, really good throws, some really, really good reads, then he's had the ones he's missed. And it's basically the assessment of the true freshman at every position. He's just at the most critical position. When you talk about quarterback, you talk about the one that everybody sees. Everybody sees Jason Stanley running down the sideline. But for Jacob, it's about improvement. And the guy has improved gradually throughout the year. He's had ups and downs, okay? But he sees the coverage, he understands where to go with the ball. We call all slants, he knows he's supposed to work the field side. He's improved at that, and he's got to continue to do that, and that's our emphasis for this week. Look, our kids know the word for the day yesterday is improvement. We're going to get each player better at each position. That's our goal. They know there's noise out there. We know there's noise out there. We're focused on us, because that's what we control. We control how we play, and that's what we're working on this week.
How do you kind of
Everything's
size
through-
up the offense,
No, you-
the identity of the offense right now? Is it a fluid thing you're seeing, and it's just a learning process for everybody, but, you know, in terms of the scheme and the
Yeah.
personnel and how everybody's, you know, getting the run game more involved?
You know, I think you'd say get the run game more involved, but then we almost broke a record against South Carolina with 3 guys that rushed for almost 100 yards. Well, we didn't do that against Vandy, and we couldn't move them up front. So it comes back to what you can do each week. And making that decision as a coach going in is hard, because you don't know how good that opponent is. You don't really know how good they are, and you've got to be able to be flexible and adjust within the game in order to do what you're able to do. So I'm very pleased with where we're at some games, and then I'm very upset with we couldn't some games. So you've got to be diversified enough, and that's the truth in the SEC and college football. You can't be one-dimensional. You got to be able to do something pretty well, and you got to be able to change it up. And that's the part that we're struggling with, week to week, figuring out what we're going to do really well against this defense. Because you look, we've done each compartment well in games, but we got to put it together and do it consistently, and that's what we're not doing.
Everything's kind of doom and gloom after a loss like that. What have you seen that tells you that, you know, the rest of the season is not gonna be the slide a lot of people are predicting just because of what just happened? And if you could focus further out on the big picture, you know, Kirby Smart is head of this Georgia program, wanting to win championship.
Well, the number one thing for me is we kicked field goals, made field goals. We threw the ball well offensively. We've improved defensively based on the numbers we put up. So there is improvement going on, and the kids got to see that. We have a meeting, we say, this is what you're doing right, this is what we're doing wrong, and this is areas that all of us can improve in. So it's a self-evaluation, and I think that's important. It's also critical in recruiting because kids have been really positive on the phone. They understand there's a lot of opportunities to come in and play, and that's what we're selling. We're selling that this program is headed in the right direction. Just because we got upset and beat by Vanderbilt when we had 421 yards and they had 171, you know, there's a score every 100 yards. We got a 95 kickoff return and then 87 yards of punt that balls went over our heads, balls sailed, guy misses a sack on a punt and he goes 80-something. I mean, those things happen. Reggie Davis steps out on the one. A lot of those things affected the outcome of that game. So to say that it's doom and gloom and everything's bad over 3 or 4 situations that happened, that's not what I'm going to do as a coach. I'm going to coach what we got to improve on and focus on that.
Lamont Gilliard and Reggie, I'm sorry, not Reggie, DeAndre Baker, where do they sit injury-wise going into this bye week? What are they able to do?
Who, Lamont?
Lamont, and, you know, Lamont didn't go back in the
Yeah.
game, and DeAndre Baker, where do they sit injury-wise going into this
DeAndre
week?
is still rehabbing. He was able to jog yesterday. He was not able to go full speed. So he will be go as can today. I don't know if he'll be able to do everything based on yesterday. Lamont should be fine today. He should be able to practice. We expect him to go.
Last question. You talked about these special teams need to improve, but how do you make that happen?
How do you make it happen? You practice it, you work on it, you change people out, you try to find new guys to go in there, you put more starters on it. I actually think that our kicker has been more consistent with where he kicked the ball. He had one bad kick the other day, but he's kicked more touchbacks. So you improve the kick placement and you improve the coverage elements. And then punting, we just gotta get better hang out of Marshall punts the ball good in practice. He just hasn't done as well in the game. We're not getting a lot of hang out of him, and we gotta get a little better hang time. And we're gonna really target those areas and try to improve on it. You go back to the basics and you work on fundamentals, which is what we'll work on this week. You got it.
Thanks.